Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but if you're here for this particular topic, you may just be a nerd. Today, in our March of 2016 Coffee Pot webinar series, we are talking about the Outlook Sync Monitor, which is a tool that we've developed to help firms keep track of whether or not their Outlook synchronization is running smoothly. It's a topic that I guess is a little bit nerdy. Now, the Outlook Sync Monitor is something that makes sure that your Outlook synchronization stays on track. Well, what is Outlook synchronization, you may ask? Well, let's go over here and let's get over to my schedule. Outlook synchronization takes people's calendars and tasks and contacts, just their calendar, just their tasks, and just the contacts that they've been identified to receive, and synchronizes them with Exchange or with your Outlook. Kind of both the same thing. Exchange is just the server version of what's happening when you run Outlook. Now, what that means is then that your calendar and your contacts and your tasks end up in your Outlook, and for most of you what that means is that they also end up on your phone, because most of you have your Outlook synced with your phone. The problem is sometimes that Outlook synchronization stops or gets suspended, or if you're running the PM Exchange connector, more on that in a second, the whole thing shuts down and stops working. And until somebody notices, either an IT person who has to check it every day a couple times, which is tedious, or worse, an attorney that didn't get something on their calendar in Outlook and they either missed it or they noticed it, but they're wondering and demanding, why didn't I get this synced through to my Outlook? And so what happens then is if it stops, there's really no way for you to be alerted. Now, you can go into View and Log Files and Outlook Sync Log, and you can look to see if it's still running. But you have to understand what all this means, and you have to know what you're looking for. These are the records that indicate when something was synced and how it synced and how it may not have been synced, and the fact that perhaps it stopped. How do you know it stopped? Just plain because it's not running. How do you know that somebody's been suspended from syncing? Well, there is a new report that is in PracticeMaster that if you actually go into the sync, bear with me here while I remember where it is. There is a report over here that allows you to see who may not be syncing. Why would they not be syncing? A lot of different reasons. It has to do with how your settings are set. And I'm not here to talk about how to set up Outlook Sync. I'm not here to talk about the PM Exchange connector, although we're going to explain that just in very brief terms in a second. I'm not here to talk about how things can go wrong. Just suffice it to say that they can. If somebody's sync settings are set to require confirmation when at least a certain number of records need to be synchronized, and then all of a sudden that number of records need to be synchronized, it's going to shut down their synchronization. What's going to happen is down in the window, right here, down in this little taskbar that's part of PracticeMaster, to the left of the word list, you're going to see in red letters, whoever had their sync shut down, Outlook synchronization suspended, with a little arrow to indicate that if you click here, you'll be able to see what's going on. Raise your hand. Well, not really raise your hand, but how many of you have had attorneys who have had their Outlook synchronization suspended and haven't really said anything about it or haven't noticed it? Happens all the time. They see it, they don't pay any attention to it, and then they're a little upset when it stops. They realize it stopped syncing, but that's really how PracticeMaster is trying to tell them that. Another thing that can happen is For whatever reason, if you're using the PM Exchange connector, which we see here starting and stopping about an hour, half hour ago, and it's going to start and stop again at 11:24 and 25 after it does its sync and make sure everything's in line. If that stops, there's really nothing to tell you other than looking here. Okay, so first off, a little bit of background history on how, background information on how the Exchange sync differs from the Outlook sync. If you have Platinum or Platinum SQL, which are different versions of the software, and you are have set up and configured PM Exchange connector, then the communication is between the two systems, PracticeMaster and Microsoft Exchange, and it happens in the background totally without having to have anything else in place. If you have not set up the PM Exchange connector, either because you don't have Platinum or because you do have Platinum and you just have not set it up, then the communication between Outlook and PracticeMaster happens between a running copy of Outlook on Bob, the attorney's desk, and a running copy of Outlook on Bob, the attorney's desk. So if Bob is sitting there, or maybe he's at lunch, but his computer's still on, and Sally sets a meeting for Bob for next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, what will happen is it will sync because Bob's PracticeMaster and Bob's Outlook are on, hopefully. If Bob has his computer off when Sally makes that appointment, the sync will not happen again until Bob turns his computer on and loads PracticeMaster and loads Outlook. Now everybody loads Outlook, and pretty much everybody loads PracticeMaster when they turn their computer on. So then that appointment will get into his calendar. But if Bob is he's in court right now, and Sally just made that appointment for next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and Bob is not using the PM Exchange connector, or Bob's firm is not using it, and it's turned his computer off, and the judge looks at Bob and says, "What are you doing next Tuesday at 9 o'clock?" And he pulls out his phone and sees nothing. That's because Sally may have put this appointment in PracticeMaster, but it hasn't synced over to Outlook yet. PM Exchange connector would stop all that. It would solve that problem. It would happen as soon as Sally made that appointment, regardless of whether Bob's Outlook or regardless of whether Bob's PracticeMaster was running. It would sync that appointment over to Bob's Outlook or Bob's Exchange mailbox and calendar, and his Exchange would sync that to his phone, even though his computer was turned off. So that's an advantage of having the PM Exchange connector. The problem is out of sight, out of mind. And if it stops for any reason, it could be because the server rebooted and it didn't start back up properly, or an update was done to Microsoft Exchange and it didn't get started back up properly. It should, but sometimes it doesn't. And if nobody's paying attention to that, then the first time somebody notices is going to be when they don't have an appointment on their calendar in Outlook or on their phone that they should. And that's a problem. That's not the time to know that the PM Exchange connector or that the Outlook sync has stopped working. The time to know that it's stopped working is as soon after it's stopped working as is humanly possible. And that's where you're going to interrupt me now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the opportune moment.
But I didn't shut up. Leanne, this is Leanne, our humble moderator, and Leanne, you must have a question.
Actually, it's not a question about the content. One of our viewers is having some trouble seeing the image, and I wondered if others were as well. Like PracticeMaster is looking blurry, and they can't discern what they're seeing, but I didn't know if this was a universal problem or just a local problem. If you're having trouble, could you raise your hand, just so we know?
Well, I'd have to say that it's probably a local problem then.
Yep, it looks like it's a local problem. So maybe the recorded version will be clearer if you're having trouble seeing.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so when is the time to know that the synchronization has stopped? Immediately after it's stopped. That's the problem. If we aren't looking at this list every day, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day to make sure it's still running, or if our attorneys are getting that little message down here that says it's suspended but they're not telling us, which is usually the case, then we need a better way to monitor this, and that's what we've come up with. Now I'm going to switch over to a machine over here, and I am going to bring this down here. Oops, there we go. This is the Outlook Sync Monitor. Sexy? No. It's really just a screen. Should you come look at this? No, that's not what it's for. Basically, it monitors when synchronization has been suspended on an individual basis, when synchronization is being performed on an hourly basis, and therefore the fact that it has not stopped, and it sends an email. It sends an email to whoever you decide to tell them that this synchronization has stopped for some reason. Either the synchronization for Bob has been shut down and suspended for whatever reason, or the fact that the hourly PM Exchange connector synchronization is not running on its regular schedule. That's all it does. Now we're adding support to allow it to send emails when somebody puts something in, let's say Outlook, that's a recurring event, because recurring events can't go in through Outlook, they have to go in through PracticeMaster. Or when something is a multi-day event and it's gone in through Outlook and it's therefore not going to make it back to PracticeMaster in the right way. So right now, all that it does is tell you when it's suspended or when it's not running on its regular hourly, usually hourly, that's set on a firm-by-firm basis, but most firms do it on an hourly basis. And in the very near future, we'll add the support, and anyone who has it will automatically get the support to also let you know when someone has added a recurring or a multi-day event through Outlook as opposed to through PracticeMaster, because if you add them through PracticeMaster, they sync over fine to Outlook, but if you add them through Outlook, they don't sync over to PracticeMaster right. So that's your extra tip for the day. If you've got attorneys that are adding recurring or multi-day events in Outlook and wondering why they're not setting up in PracticeMaster right, it's because it's not supported. So what does it do? It sends an email. Every hour or at a predetermined amount of time, most firms will set this to run actually on a 90-minute basis because they've got their sync set to run on an hourly basis. Every 90 minutes, it looks at, again, the other number is predetermined by the firm. It looks at the last 90 minutes, in my example, to see if we have a start and stop of the synchronization, if we got a successful end of synchronization. If we didn't, bam, it fires off an email right away to the people that were identified. It also looks every hour to make sure that there's nobody that is suspended. Now again, we have these tabs that you can look at, but nobody ever comes here and looks at this. We just need to make sure that this is installed and that it's running on your server and that it's running as a service, meaning even if the server's not logged into, that it's still running and sending these emails. So this part isn't all that exciting, because it doesn't do anything except send those emails. And so therefore, what we're looking at here is a situation where we put something on your server, it constantly monitors your sync log, constantly looking for successful completion of the hourly sync within the last 90 minutes. If it finds that there was not a successful completion of the hourly sync, or if it finds that any of the attorneys or paralegals or anybody that's got their synchronization turned on has had it suspended, or in the future release that's coming out in a couple of weeks, whether or not anybody has tried to put in a recurring or a multi-day event in Outlook, which is not going to sync over properly to PracticeMaster. All of these things are things that without looking at the log, you wouldn't know. And who's got time to come in and look at the log every day, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many times a day you'd need to do it in order to make sure that happens. So that's it. The Outlook Sync Monitor sells for $295. We charge our hourly rate to install it. That installation can take, if that installation takes a half hour or less, there's no charge for the installation. But if it takes longer because we have problems with your ODBC or something not being set up right on your side, then we will charge for the installation. So basically, it's a flat $295 installed, ready to go out the door, and it will monitor your Outlook synchronization from that point forward forever, as long as your server is running. And of course, if your server is running, if your people are logged into tabs in PracticeMaster, putting in appointments that need to be synced, obviously your server is running. So that's it.
Oh, I got a question.
Okay.
Okay, so this viewer wants to know why not an SMS instead of an email, and what is the highest frequency of monitoring available?
Highest frequency would be an hour, and not an SMS because we don't have access to SMS servers. However, most cell phone providers, AT&T for instance, Sprint, Verizon, all have the ability to send an email to a certain address, usually it's your phone number at something, that will trigger an SMS. So SMS is kind of inherent in the emailing as long as you're using a provider that supports that, and I don't know of any that don't. Actually, that's,
all right.
we get some SMS notifications here via that, and they're actually emails that are sent to a certain address with mine or whoever's cell phone number as part of the address.
Okay, and do you have an official date for the new release that's coming out in a couple of weeks?
I do not. We are hoping to have it at the latest by the end of April, but we can't really guarantee that for sure. So let's say that we're targeting the end of April. Is that it for questions?
That is it.
Awesome. Very good. I will turn over here and press this magic button just to show you that these webinars are recorded, and to talk about the fact that next month we will be doing a webinar on, and you know what, I wonder if I put the right stuff in. Let's see if Patty's got this in there, because she may not even know what the next webinar is, but I do. So I'll tell you. If you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, emphasis on the S at the end of systems, you will get to a place where video is one of your options. And when you hover over the video menu item, this drop-down pops down, and included in it is Coffee Pot Webinars. If you go there, you will find that on April 15th, we're talking about Legal Anywhere and Connect, two products that hook into WorldDocs from a company called Legal Anywhere, one for an extranet and one for an intranet, to provide information to your clients in an extranet where they can sign in and get that information, including WorldDocs documents. So it's kind of cool. We will be talking about that. That's what I didn't do. I didn't put the description in, so Patty will put the description in sometime this afternoon. You will also find recorded versions of everything we've ever done. So this one, this is one you're attending right now. It'll be in post-production for a couple days, and then the recorded version will show up here. And as you scroll down, you'll see recorded versions of every Coffee Pot webinar we ever did. So this is the place to come to learn about what's coming up and to see recorded versions of what's been done before. And that's not just for the Coffee Pot webinars. It's our tabs, PracticeMaster, and WorldDocs virtual user group meetings that happen on the last Monday of the month. It's our eBytes video series that Mary Jo films 3 of every month, one on WorldDocs, one on PracticeMaster, one on tabs or the accounting software. And these are little short 3, 4, 5 minute snippets that where Mary Jo takes something very succinct, some neat feature, some neat thing that a lot of people didn't know you could do, and talks about it. And then we have our longer form Paul and Mary Jo show where either I or Mary Jo will take a broader topic and spend 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes going into great detail. All of this video content is always here for your perusal. It's also the place to go to find out what we're talking about at the next virtual user group meeting for tabs or PracticeMaster or WorldDocs, and the next Coffee Pot webinar series. And of course, it's all searchable. So please take advantage of this content. Take advantage of the fact that you can register for the upcoming live events. Take advantage of the fact that if you're not able to attend, you can still see them. So that's it for today. Everybody have a good rest of the day and rest of the month, and we will see you in April when we talk about Legal Anywhere and Connect. Thanks much. Bye-bye.